Our third daily quest on decimal computation. As a reminder, once again, our quiz is on Friday of this week, so make sure that you are making yourself prepared. As we write out these decimals correctly, we do not want to say 3.2, so we got to say it with the correct notation. This first problem would be 43 wholes, but we don't have to write that part out, and 11. And since it's 2 digits behind the decimal place, that would be the hundredths place. So 11 hundredths, which would be written as 43 and 11 hundredths. For our next problem, we have 7 wholes, and this time is 12 hundredths, which should be 7 wholes and 12 hundredths. Our last one is definitely the toughest one. So this says we have 12 wholes, and this time we have 626. But we are 3 digits behind the decimal place, so this would be thousandths. Thousandths. 626 thousandths. So is it written correctly would be 626 thousandths. Let's get to the story problems. Lucas is building a brand new fire pit. Good for him. That sounds fun. He set 23 bricks next to each other. Okay. Each brick is 5 and 25 inches long. How long is the entire fire pit? So, a couple keywords here. I see next to each other, which tells me we're doing some type of addition, and then each brick is this long. So it looks like we're adding repeatedly. We should know by now that adding repeatedly is the same thing as multiplying. So when we're multiplying, I like to have those larger number of digits on the top, but you technically can multiply either way. You could put 23 on the top. I just think it's much easier to do it this way. Once again, I have to remove the decimal place. And I had 2 digits behind the decimal place, so my answer needs to have 2 digits behind the decimal place as well. So now I just multiply like I always would. I'm done with the ones column. So I put a 0 in the ones column because I'm now multiplying in the tens column. So this is 10, 5, and another 10. I need to add up all of these answers. So that would be, I need 2 digits behind the decimal place again. So that'd be right here. So the fire pit is 120 and 75 hundredths inches long. There we go. Next problem. Joe decides to be a good friend and split his candy bars evenly. Ooh, I see. Split his candy bars evenly between his 5 friends and himself. So that'd be 6 people total. Looks like it tells me right away that we're doing some type of division here. Okay. He has 10 candy bars. How much does everyone get if everyone gets the same amount? So we already figured out that it's division. So if everyone gets the same amount. So the problem is I'm doing 10 divided by 6, which does not divide evenly. So I recognize that I'm going to have a decimal place as the answer. So what I do, which is not the only way to solve this problem, is I put in my decimal place and I just add a bunch of zeros right away. I can add as many zeros as I want behind that decimal place because it doesn't change the value of the number 10. But I just like to add 3. Okay? And now I'm going to divide just like I normally would. So 10 can fit one group of 6 without going over. I subtract, and so I get 40 down here. That can be 6 groups, so 36. Once again, 40. can be 6 groups. Once again, 40. So I have a repeating decimal here. So we need to round to something. I love to round to 2 decimal places. And the reason why I like 2 decimal places is because money has 2 decimal places in it, and money is the most commonly used example in math. So I look at this number 6. That means we are closer to 67 hundredths than we are to 66 hundredths. So we're going to round the hundredth digit up to 7, and each person gets, now here's what's really important, because this answer is not exact, we better put the magic math word of about. And about tells us that we rounded in this problem. Now, this written as a fraction, so 6 repeating, is a special fraction. If you can tell me what that is as a fraction in simplest form, I'll give you 10 SPs. So give that as a little challenge for today. A caterpillar is growing a little bit each day. On Monday, it was this long. On Tuesday, it grew this much. And on Wednesday, it grew this much. How long is it now? So we did this one already. And this time we are going to be adding 3 numbers again. We need to make sure that we line up our place values. But this time, the place values do not line up nearly as well as they did before. So I need to add a 0 here and 2 zeros after the decimal place with the whole number 5 before I add anything together. So this time, the caterpillar (27 32 inches long now. Alrighty. Last one. Mark is the new running back for the China Youth League football team. Good for him. That's awesome. He runs approximately 3.5 yards on every rush. If a football field is 100 yards long and Mark is halfway down the field right now, how many rushes will it take for him to get a touchdown? Okay, so we have to figure out how many yards Mark needs to travel. And then we got to figure out the operation. So the field is 100 yards normally. And Mark is halfway down the field right now. So this is where we're starting. So half of 100 is 50. So Mark has to travel 50 yards total, okay? And he runs about 3.5 yards on each rush. So what I could do is I could say one rush is 3.5 yards. 2 rushes is 7 yards. And I can do that until I'm over 50. Or I can use what I've been learning about with decimals, and I can do the number 50 divided by 3.5. Now the problem with this is that the number 3.5 has a decimal place in it. So what I have to do to get rid of the decimal place is I have to multiply each of these numbers by 10 to move that decimal 1 to the right. But then I have to move this decimal 1 to the right as well. So what I end up getting is 35 divided by 500. And we also know that we're probably doing a decimal, so I'm going to add my 3 decimal places behind to make sure that I'm doing this problem correctly. Okay, so this is what we have. All right, so the first one is going to be to the number 50. That'll be one group. So that'll be 35 taking from 50, which is 150. So now I need to figure out my skip counting. So one group is 35, two groups is 70, three groups is 105, four groups is 140. So it looks like this is going to be four groups. Okay, and I bring my next digit down. So for 100. So that's too big, so now we're going to have three groups here. Oh, sorry, two groups. Sorry. Let me try to erase that a little bit better this time. That'll be two groups. So this will be 70. And from this point, we actually don't have to finish because Mark cannot do a fraction or a decimal of a rush. So we know that it can't be 14 rushes. It has to be the next one. So that means we can answer the question right now. Mark needs 15 rushes to get a touchdown. So this was a tough problem. But if you have any questions, make sure you let me know.